Welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Brian Halley, and you're listening to the Brandstanding Podcast. I'm excited to help you unlock the magic of brand strategy to supercharge your business in a way that's practical, easy, and fun. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the next episode of the Brandstanding Podcast. This is Brian Halley, and I'm here with my wife and co-host, the ambitious Emily Halley.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being here with me, Emily. Thank you, listeners. And today we are going to be talking about fonts and typography. Ooh, exciting. So make a great drive if you're driving.
Try to stay awake, eat some snacks.
It's fun. I love this stuff. Because fonts are everywhere on websites, logos, packaging. But did you know that the font you choose can make or break your brand's perception? What? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of typography. Emily, why don't you tell them what we're going to learn today?
Well, here's what I'm hoping that we're going to learn.
Okay.
Because I'm not too savvy with typography myself. So hopefully you're going to learn us some stuff. So we are going over a brief history of typography and what that is. The emotions that different font styles can convey. So similar to what color can do that we talked about on the last episode, different fonts can convey different emotions as well. How to match fonts to your brand archetype. The importance of readability when choosing a font, as well as choosing a timeless design. And then we're going to go over some good and bad real world font examples, and then how to include your font choices in your style guide.
Excellent. And I love typography and fonts. And it's not just about aesthetics. The fonts really communicate a brand's message and influence perception. And there's a reason why. And we probably could take a trip to the past to figure this out. Emily, you're the history teacher. Take us to the past.
Take us to the past. Okay. So we'll talk about a history of typography. First, let's define some terms. Okay. So the word font refers to a specific design of letters, numbers, and symbols. So like Arial or Times New Roman. Mm-hmm. Those are fonts. The word typography is the art of arranging and styling that text, including things like the font that you pick, the size, the spacing, and the weight. So like how bold it is. Mm-hmm. And in order to create a visually appealing and legible design.
Yeah. So
essentially, a font is just a single element within the scope of the broader practice of typography.
Typography is that movement, and it's really powerful. I can tell a lot of people don't know about this because sometimes I see billboards and flyers laid out where everything's the same size. There's no variation. But when you utilize elements of typography by using large, medium, small, bold, italicized fonts and place them well, you can engage the eye and do movements will keep a person's attention to her.
And they can see like the most important things first.
Yeah, the hierarchy of it. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, got it. So the origins of typography dates back to the Gutenberg press. So the first time that people had to create a font and set the type in order to print something on the press was when typography was born.
Long
in the 1440s.
Time ago. So long ago. Yeah. So the first typeface that was created for the printing press was serif fonts. And a serif font is a typeface that has small decorative strokes or feet at the bottoms, at the ends of all the letters. These little extensions called serifs, they help guide the reader's eye, making text easier to read Modern examples of serif fonts include Times New Roman, Garamond, Georgia.
Serif lettering was first used within the Roman Empire, right? Like when they were carving words into
columns and marble. And because they've been around a long time, they convey a classical traditional feel. Now, sans serif is a typeface that does not have the small decorative strokes on the ends of the letters. The word sans or sans in French means without. So sans serif literally means without serifs. And they're more clean, they're more modern and simple, they feel more minimal, they're easier to read on screen, which is a good adaptation to us using digital screens today. And fonts you'll see like that are Helvetica or Arial, Futura. And they gained popularity in the 20th century, especially with the digital age.
Modernism, right? Yeah.
There's a lot of different other types as well, like handwritten and display fonts, which came about in the industrial advertising age. There are thousands of fonts today, and they all evoke different feelings and tones, and they should be used in the right places and the right times.
So now we're going to dive into the psychology of different font styles. All of these different styles carry different meanings, and they can help your brand to evoke the types of emotions and get across the types of messages, the story that you're trying to get across to your customers. Yeah. Serif fonts carry with them a meaning of tradition, of trustworthiness, and they're very classical, probably because they are so historical.
Yeah, almost eclectic. They've been around a long time.
Date back to the Roman era. So because they've been around so long, they tend to carry that meaning with them. Like Brian mentioned before, probably the most well-known serif fonts are Times New Roman, Garamond, Georgia. They are often used by companies like financial institutions, luxury brands, editorial sites. I would imagine probably because it goes along with the idea of being trustworthy, of being traditional. If you're trying to get across to your customers that they can trust your financial institution, for example, then the serif font can help you get that across because it already carries with it this idea of being trustworthy.
Yeah, you don't have to prove it. It's been around for a while. It's already proven itself.
Yeah. So if you want to convey heritage, trust, sophistication, these are good choices for you. Brand examples that use serif fonts are the New York Times, Tiffany, and Vogue.
Yeah, great. And then that moves us into the sans serif. So those are more modern, clean, and approachable. And that's your Helvetica, your Arial, your Futura, Montserrat. There's a lot of beautiful ones out there. These are often used by tech companies, modern brands, trying to use minimalist designs. And we're in a trend where a lot of companies are moving to that simple, more modern, clean look, mostly for readability and memorability. It conveys simplicity, innovation, and friendliness. And brand examples for that are Google, Spotify, Airbnb, to name a few.
Okay, then we've got script and handwritten fonts. These tend to get across elegance, artistry. They're more personal, obviously. Examples of these are fonts like Pacifico, Dancing Script, Brush Script. They're often used by beauty brands or artisan businesses or personal brands because they carry with it that sense of being personal or unique.
Yeah. Written by a person. It's a connection there. Yeah.
Written by a person. They're best for brands that want to convey things like creativity, luxury, or intimacy. Brand examples are Coca-Cola and the Instagram logo.
Yeah. The next one is display and decorative fonts. Those are more bold, playful, and unique. Examples of that are Impact, Lobster, Comic Sans, not recommended. I'm just giving some examples of decorative fonts. This is where you get into the thousands. And I mentioned that earlier, that in the industrial age, the advertising industry boomed, and that's when you saw these kind of come out a lot more. And then with the invention of the computer and more fonts, they really have gotten crazy on how many options you have, but they do allow you to be different. They're used by niche brands, entertainment, brands looking for a loud presence. They're best used when you want to convey energy or fun or uniqueness. Like I've used them in carnivals, circuses, like you see them all sorts of places that can be a little bit louder. Brand examples like Infanta. They're display and decorative fonts. Because they have all this history and you've seen them everywhere being used, fonts work really well matching to the 12 brand archetypes. So when you find your brand archetype, you know kind of the direction of fonts you can use and which ones not to. Just like we covered in color, there's directions you go, directions not to go, and these are some guidelines for the archetypes. We'll go through each one and we'll just kind of take turns. Emily, how's that?
Okay, so the innocent archetype is pure and optimistic. So soft serifs or clean sans serif fonts are appropriate for the innocent. I'm assuming that a soft serif font is a serif that doesn't have as pronounced of a serif.
Yeah, they're smaller, like subtle, or they're not pointy. They kind of round at the edges. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Using a serif in the innocent makes sense because they do like to cling to tradition, how things have always been done. The clean sans serif, though, also makes sense in that it's more elemental.
Yeah, it's simple. There's not a lot of additives to it. They've dropped those sides and edges.
Yeah. So examples that would work well for the innocent would be fonts like Montserrat and Laura.
Yeah, beautiful fonts. Those are great. The Explorer, this is a fun one. That it's, being adventurous and bold. Now, if that's your company and you have a brand that is going in the Explorer route, you can be a little bit more rugged, a little more distressed. Geometric fonts work really well for that. There's a lot of options. Roboto Slab, Railway. And when you get in display fonts for that, there's some fun ones, like the ones that are a little bit gritty, a little bit distressed. They work well for the Explorer.
Awesome. The Sage is pretty easy. Obviously, we want to get across this idea of being knowledgeable and wise. So classic serif fonts fit perfectly here. Anything that suggests like classic print, typewriter, right? It's going to fall right in line with the Sage. So Times New Roman, Merriweather.
Yeah. An exception is when we brand tech companies, we sometimes use sans serif fonts because they look a little more techy. The Hero is next, strong and determined. Bold sans serifs work, or slab serif fonts. That's Sabibus or Oswald are good.
So what's a slab serif?
Slab serifs have serifs, but they don't go to a point. It's just like a big, bold block that's put on the bottoms of them. Chunky.
Oh,
yeah.
like a varsity font.
Yeah, like varsity. That's probably the largest you'll see, but they're ones where you would just have a straight bar across instead of a rounded edge to the feet of the letters.
I that makes sense because it almost suggests that the letter is grounded and solid.
Yeah,
and
big
strong.
Foot on the ground and
Okay.
Supportive.
Okay, the next one is the Outlaw, which is rebellious and edgy. So fonts that look rough or grungy, stenciled, maybe even look a little messy would be good for the Outlaw. Examples are stencil or black letter fonts.
Great. The Magician, being innovative and visionary, use futuristic or elegant fonts. Have fun with that. Use Futura. Cinzel, Cinzel. That's a serif font that is beautiful. That's a great one to use.
Okay, for the everyman, since we're trying to be friendly or relatable, just a simple, everyday sans serif font that is unassuming, kind of plain. Open sans or Poppins are good choices for the everyman.
Yeah. And we got the lover, romantic and passionate again. Script or elegant serif fonts. Get across that passion, get that love coming through. Playfair Display, Pacifico, and a lot of handwritten fonts. Those are beautiful as well.
So more personalized look. Yeah.
And just
artistic.
And if you're writing a letter to someone you
better
love,
be handwritten.
use your own font of your handwriting.
Okay, the jester is fun and playful. So you can use bold fonts or quirky fonts like Baloo or Bangers, silly fonts, just depending on what exactly you're trying to get across with your jester brand.
Mm-hmm. And the caregiver, more compassionate and nurturing, I would use a serif or handwritten font. For caregiver, you could use Quicksand or Railway.
Okay, the ruler brand story is powerful and refined. So strong fonts are appropriate for the ruler, but also with a sense of elegance. So you want to use elegant serifs like Garamond or Baskerville.
Mm-hmm.
These would have a touch of history to them, classical look to them that's also very timeless.
And the last one is creator. Look for an artistic, expressive, and unique font. Consider brush scripts like Museo. Again, there's so many fonts. So have fun with picking your fonts according to your brand archetype.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about how it's important for your fonts to be readable.
Ah, yes.
And choosing timeless fonts versus trendy fonts. This is probably one of your biggest soapboxes, right?
Yes. The number one thing is readability. A font should just be legible at all sizes, especially when you get small and digital apps these days, like you have the size of your phone and the screen. If it's not readable or legible, just abandon it. There are plenty of choices to choose one that is readable. And so if you need to type out the whole alphabet or type out a paragraph so you can see how those letters connect, ask somebody, is this readable? Ask them to read something or a paragraph you did in this font. If it's not, next.
Yeah.
What's next?
Because the whole point is to communicate. And if you're not doing that.
Yes.
Then
I said that fonts convey feelings, but fonts don't have feelings. So if you abandon it, it's okay. It's all right. They'll go hang out with their font buddies.
Good to know. So readability matters.
Yes.
Okay. And then we want to avoid overly trendy fonts. So these can be fonts like Lobster. I think you would probably put Papyrus on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it's usually the ones that are in the drop-down menu.
Yeah.
That you have on your computer.
The ones that come loaded on Microsoft Word.
And you scroll down, and instead of scrolling on the top 20, you went down to 30. Well, there's 100 million people that have computers that have done that same thing, and you see it everywhere. So I recognize it. I trust this. I see this a lot. The challenge is it is overdone, and it becomes cliche, outdated, irrelevant, and you don't want that. You want to make sure you're with the times, you're evolving, moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is that a lot of those fonts in your drop down are also timeless.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So, I mean,
give
you've
respect
got like Helvetica and Futura and Georgia and Times New Roman. All those fonts are in your drop down, but they still hold their style.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably the more display fonts that you get there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Timeless choices. Yeah. Like you said, the Helvetica, Garamond, Futura, Georgia. those choices remain strong even today. You also want to make sure that the font is accessible. So if you're doing a website, you have open source fonts like Roboto and Montserrat. They work well across digital and print media. And when I say open source, it means that everyone has access to those. Where if you got certain fonts that are like, maybe they're too difficult to read, they may not be compatible
on your website.
On your web. Yeah. If you're going to like a templated site or you're building it as a
So you need to make sure that the fonts that you choose are available for print as well as for web applications.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next, let's talk about putting this into your style guide. We talked about the colors and getting a specific font and how powerful that is, and you want to stay consistent. Your fonts also need to go in your style guide. Your logo may have started with the font, but normally the logo operates on its own, not going to use that same font for anything else. So let's talk about where we go next. So you have your logo, and then you have secondary fonts. Supporting typefaces that are used for the subheads, accents, variations in hierarchy as you're doing a flyer or something. And they just complement the primary font while adding contrast. And when I say that, it means like one's bold, one's might be thinner. And so they have that interest as you read.
So you might have like a main message that you want people to see first when they come to your website, like, welcome to Brandstanding.
Yeah, and we'll call that the accent or decorative font.
Okay.
Like that's your headline title font. You don't use it a lot, but it is for social media graphics when you're just like, here's your first thing you see, and it's
so for that font,
interesting.
I've seen you make sure that you pick ones that have a variety of weight options.
Yeah,
right? Like you can do it bold or semi-bold so that you can make that font heavier as a title.
Absolutely. Like
you wouldn't want it to be like wispy.
Gotham is really powerful at that because it has a extra black, a medium black, a bold, a medium, a regular, a light, and then it has italicized of all those as well. And so that means that's a big family of fonts.
So you have a lot of options.
A lot of variety. So if you choose something like that, people get to know your font as well as you have that ability to cause that interest. So you have your logo, then you have your title font, your secondary font, which is used for your subheads underneath that, and then you have your body font, and that's just used for your text on websites, brochures, blog posts, etc. So the pro tip today for this area is your style guide should specify the font sizes, weights, like is it bold, regular, or light, spacing rules to maintain consistency across platforms.
And you can mix your serif and sans serif choice, right? Like you can have your heading font be one or the other, and then your body font be the opposite.
Absolutely. Yep. That is totally true. You can do that. You just want movement and for them to go well with each other. Okay. That's fonts today. What are the key takeaways, Emily?
So we learned about how fonts play a crucial role in how your brand is perceived, and that serif fonts convey tradition and trust, while sans serif fonts feel more modern, more approachable, more innovative. Different brand archetypes align with specific fonts to enhance their message. You want to make sure that you choose fonts based on their readability. Their timelessness should be both priorities when you're going through them. And great brands will choose fonts that align with their core values, their identity, and their archetypal story in order to enhance their message.
Great. Well, thanks for listening. If you can remember this while you're driving or put it in your head, we encourage you to review your current fonts. Do they align with your company's brand identity? We want to give you a visual to look at and understand the feelings that fonts convey. So we do have a freebie for you this week. It's called Fonts with Feelings, and it's something I've put together. Click in the show notes to download that. It's a list of fonts and the emotions they evoke. So you'll see words that say like classy or calming or peaceful. That's not the name of the font. It's the feeling that that font conveys. And it's all sectioned out in different quadrants so you can see what styles of fonts those are. Well, that should kind of help you a little bit. So please let us know how we can help on your branding journey. Let us know what questions you have. If you're finding our content helpful, please subscribe, leave us a review, or rate the podcast. This helps us reach more people trying to build their brands. Join us next week as we continue in the identity phase and take the fun dive into the world of logos. That's what we're going to be covering next. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see you there. Until next time, keep dreaming big. My name is Brian Halley.
And I'm Emily Halley. Take care.